Welcome, everyone, to What's Working. What's Working is brought to you by Regents. I'm Cam Marston, and I want to begin the show kind of echoing what Sean said at the end of his segment, and that is about the loss of Rennie Brabner. I didn't know him well like so many of the people in this station did, but I knew him well enough that he shook my hand a number of times, and we made eye contact, and he gave me great confidence in the work that I was doing, and I felt like I had someone at my back if I ever needed it. He's a loss both for the community and certainly for this radio station and his many friends. Well, it's time to catch up with what's going on with me and with the show. Let me tell you what you can expect, give you an overview before we get into these first interviews. If I'm any reflection of the economy out there, I've begun to see a little bit of activity around business in the future, meaning I think people have triaged this situation and are beginning to look at how we're going to make ends meet down the road. In other words, the initial panic is over. Let's look towards the future. So my phone a little bit has been ringing about activities going on this fall and later this summer, and I hope my experience reflects your own as well. The initial shock is over, perhaps. It's time to figure out how this is going to look on the other side. So I've got people calling me about my services later in the year, and that's good. I hope it's a barometer for other things that are going out there. I've had 2 calls for work, for people beginning to think about the future, and that's great. The focus of the show, as you know, is on small business, and the Tuesday, Thursday shows are how to get along in what I'm calling the COVID-19 economy. And what we've got is typically people giving us advice and telling us stories and things that they've done or that you and I should do in order to get through. However, when I was given the opportunity to interview the chief medical officer at the Mobile Infirmary, Bill Admire, I had to take that opportunity. He's going to be the first guest on the show. I want to hear what he's seeing, what he's doing, what that place looks like. Is it something out of the movies? Is it something out of some futurist drama? He's going to give us some insights into what he's seeing, what he's doing, and most importantly, what he needs from people like you and me. After Dr. Admire, we'll have Jay Stubbs and Josh Null. Jay and Josh have historically been in a face-to-face handshake business, in the insurance business. They're financial services professionals. However, to their credit, in a very short amount of time, they have transferred their business, or transformed it rather, from a face-to-face handshake business to entirely online through the video tools and the online documents that they're sharing with their customers now. In fact, Jay has told me his business has seen a surge, and he has managed to maintain that surge even without what would historically be meeting with each person. What I've asked them to do is to come on and give you and me some steps that we can take to transition our business, if it's been a historically face-to-face business, to now an online business. What are the tools that we need to know about? How do we use those tools? They'll come up at the bottom of the hour. And we're going to finish with the inspirational moment from Dan Emery. He's the CEO of Feeding the Gulf Coast Food Bank. He has some great stories to tell. He also has some needs, and we're going to get him on here to tell what's going on and how we can help him. Now, don't forget, about 1:52, if you have to leave, about 1:52 p.m., we're going to recap the show. I'm going to give you the highlights, the things that I think you need to know, the things that stood out in this for me, and you can get the text highlights, or you get the highlights texted to you by texting What's Working to 44222. Again, text What's Working to 44222. We'll also be taking your calls and your texts at 343-0106. I've said this a number of times on the Wednesday shows, but the significance of the online media continues to impress me of how important it is. What I'm talking about is social media here, and I always want to leave my own content out there so that you can follow what we're doing as well as get this information. You can find What's Working with Cam Marston on Instagram at that title, and on Facebook. Search What's Working with Cam Marston. You can also leave me a message directly, 251-260-8100 if you wish, or email me directly at CAM at What's Working Cam. When we come back, Dr. Bill Admire, Chief Medical Officer, Mobile Infirmary. You're listening to What's Working. It's brought to you by Regents. We'll be back. What's Working is brought to you by Regions, and on the line I've got Dr. Bill Admire. He's the Chief Medical Officer and Vice President of the Mobile Infirmary and Vice President North Baldwin Infirmary. Bill, Dr. Admire, thank you for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're a non-traditional guest for the show. We're usually speaking to people that can help small business, but when I heard that you were available and were willing to talk, I was eager to get you on the phone. So let's begin on just a very broad question. Tell me what it's like there. What's going on at the infirmary and North Baldwin Infirmary? What does it look like?
It is the last 3 to 4 weeks we have been very busy preparing and planning to combat this coronavirus pandemic, and we have increased staffing. We're increasing our equipment, ventilators, personal protective equipment, which is called PPE, and getting our staff educated, forming teams that will be able to handle hopefully we don't get this, but when we have a surge or influx of patients that may peak here in a week or two, that we are ready to help the community.
Has there ever been a dress rehearsal for something like this in your different hospitals?
Well, we always have a disaster emergency plan, which could be any kind of disaster, hurricanes or anything, accidents that would be large scale. So we have always drilled, but for a pandemic, it's different because this affects not just us locally if something would happen, but nationally and globally.
Sure.
So we do prepare and we practice.
So there is the national conversation has been around ventilators and where to get them, how to get them. I even had a friend of mine in New York City in the medical profession say, "Cam, do you know anybody in Mobile that has ventilators? We've got enough now. Do you want access to them?" Tell me what your situation is with the ventilators and give us an overview of the local condition for those things.
Well, as you know, in Mobile, we have 4 hospitals: Mobile Infirmary, University of South Alabama, Providence, and Spring Hill. And each hospital has their own set number of ventilators. Here at the infirmary, we have close to 100 ventilators in our different intensive care units. We have ordered another 50 to 100 more from various vendors around the country. We've received 15. We're waiting for more. And I did receive your message about your friend in New York, and we've actually are in the process of contacting him.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. I hope that will be helpful. It's wonderful to feel like I'm able to contribute with just even a simple introduction. Tell me this. I'm very curious. If I were to walk into the hospital now, what would I see? Have you created triage units and false walls? And I remember a scene from E.T. with all the stuff being rushed into the home to keep people separate from one another. What does the physical environment in the hospital look like now? Has it been significantly altered?
We have altered the hospital. We have a 680-bed hospital. The things that you would notice, first of all, no visitors allowed, because we don't want anyone bringing in COVID-19 into our hospital to affect our patients and our healthcare workers. But the physical aspect of it, you would see a tent outside the entrance of the emergency room where we screen people before they come into the ER, and if they have COVID-like symptoms, they'll go to the tent and get taken care of by the doctor or nurse there instead of going into the waiting room where they could infect other patients that are waiting to be seen for other illnesses. If you looked at our hospital, we dedicated our entire 4th floor to all COVID patients. And currently we're up to almost 70, 80 patients in our COVID area, just on the 4th floor. And we have a tent outside one of our clinics right on our campus that is drive-by testing. And we also have another tent where there's a doctor and a nurse practitioner and other nurses seeing patients in the car, determine whether they can go home and take care of this with their remedies at home, or do they need to be seen right away in the emergency room, or do they need to be admitted? So it's a whole different physical environment.
If I were to let's assume I'm in the 4th floor COVID hall. What is the personal protection the doctors and the nurse practitioners are wearing? Do they look like are they in hazmat suits or something like that? Tell me what they're literally wearing.
Cam, that's a great question. What we have done on the 4th floor, it's what we call a closed unit. No one can go in there unless you're a designated physician, nurse, or respiratory therapist that is allowed to go in there. Because, once again, it's a unit that needs special personal protective equipment. You would see everyone in a gown, shoe coverings, face masks, face shield, and in the ICU, when they're working with the patients on ventilators, they'll even wear more extensive covering to cover their faces, their whole entire head, so that nothing in the air that could be aerosolized, they could breathe in and contact the disease. And yes, it's a closed unit. Everyone looks different. personal protective equipment than you'd see in the rest of the hospital.
The attitude of the healthcare worker right now, they are being honored and they're being lauded, all deservedly so. However, do you get a sense that the people that are dealing with these patients at any part of the hospital are weary? Are they tired? Or is this their time to shine? What is their behavior?
I would answer that by saying that all healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, therapists, emergency medical service, ambulance drivers, paramedics, frontline people like police that have to be out with these folks and be in that environment where they may be exposed, they are the heroes. They have stepped up. All of our workers have stepped up. They're coming to work. They're wearing their masks. They're wearing their protective personal equipment. And their attitude, even though they're scared and anxious, they're here and they're stepping up to the cause and the obligation and responsibility that they have to take care of these folks in our community.
Are they getting additional training now about as new things are updated, as new information comes about, whether it be transmission issues of COVID-19? Is there constant training going on as new information comes out? Or are you guys saying this is the way it's going to be? Let's push this through.
What we have done, we have the medical staff. We have over 600 doctors on our medical staff. We formed a COVID task force, 8 leaders, physicians, along with nursing and administration together, putting together a plan. We have 15 subcommittees from various parts of the hospital. And then what we do is we have daily meetings and planning and education. We've taken nurses that have gone to our education department to learn more about coronavirus, how to take care of the patients. The doctors are constantly sharing information that is going on in the literature, medical literature, and what we're seeing from on the social media and TV that we're picking up. But we're constantly deriving more information. We're listening to Dr. Fossey from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. We're listening to Dr. Reddick from the CDC. And this is a ongoing, evolving process of educating doctors, nurses, and all of our staff so that we can handle the patients. So
it sounds like there's no single clearinghouse of quality content for this. You're getting it from wherever you can find it, and where the educated comments are coming out of, and you're tracking those and accumulating them all. Is that right?
We are. And, what we do is we base our care based on science and fact and evidence-based medicine so that we can give the best practices and the highest quality patient care to the people that have coronavirus. And we have to do it in an environment where we have a portion of our hospital that's COVID positive, the coronavirus patients, and we have the other part of the hospital where we're still taking care of everything else, heart attacks, babies being delivered, trauma, or anything else. We're rising to the occasion to handle both, which is unprecedented. We have not seen a pandemic like this in our country since 1918.
Is there anything in your background that reflected what you're doing right now? Anything you can call on that says, oh, I've kind of experienced something like this, or is this entirely new territory?
Well, being an emergency room doctor for over 20 years in internal medicine, I did work in the ER when the Bayway had the large crash, the Amtrak.
Oh, yeah.
Bayway crash that happened. And that's when you'll get a surge of hundreds of patients, but nothing like this that we expect to see. And I also think of Katrina when it hit our neighbors in Mississippi and New Orleans when they were helicoptering people in. And our hospital census grew from an average of 500 to over 700, 800 people that we took in from Katrina. But this is different. This is a virus that's very contagious, very virulent, and there's a certain amount of people that die from it. We don't know what the mortality rate is. It may be 2%, 1.5%, in some places higher. So this is very different, and everyone has anxiety over it. But I think if we follow what the CDC guidelines are, and our leaders are telling us, and the doctors are telling us, we can overcome this. It's just a matter of time for this pandemic to be controlled, mitigated, and then it'll decelerate, and we'll be past that. The scary thing is it may be seasonal, which means every season we may have another coronavirus. But by that time, the world's population of 8 billion people, we come immunizations. We can get vaccinations to it, or we can just build up our own immune systems to the coronavirus. But that takes time.
Well, it was one of the questions I wanted to ask you is about the antibody testing. I've heard many different things that if you prove, now help me out with the language here, but if you prove positive for the antibodies, you're immune. Is that in any way accurate?
Well, there's 2 types of tests. One is the RNA test, which is called RNA CRP. PCR. That means polymerase chain reaction. That actually tests for the actual virus itself. And that can take a day, sometimes 2 or 3 days, 4 days to get the result until we get better testing from one of the companies that's doing that. The other test, which you're talking about, is the antibody test. And what it tests for, there's two immunoglobulins, immunoglobulin G or immunoglobulin M. If you have M, that's the first one that'll show. That shows you've been exposed, most likely, if you have the symptoms. And then later on, you'll develop the immunoglobulin G. And if you have that and you resolve from your symptoms, 2 weeks or so pass, you can be a plasma donor because your body has the antibodies, the immunoglobulin G. And then you can be a plasma donor, and that's called convalescent plasma exchange, which means that you can donate your plasma. We can inject it into patients that have the disease and have severe symptoms, and that gives them antibodies to help fight the disease and hopefully recover.
Is there a call for that now? Or is there a plasma center that's testing people?
Not right now, but we are actually, Dr. Eunice, he's the head of our hematology oncology division at the hospital. We are getting the paperwork ready, and that we'll be getting approval. And as the time goes by, and we do have people that have had coronavirus, and they resolve, and they show that they have the IgG, they can be plasma donors, and we would start using that.
Has that plasma donation proven effective to fighting it off in other people?
They've done it in other countries, China, over in Europe, and Italy, the places that have been hit hard, and there's data showing that it can be very helpful. So if it's going to be helpful, I think we've had 2 places in this country that I know of. One is in Colorado where a physician received it, and then just yesterday I saw that down in Houston at Memorial Hermann, they're starting to use plasma exchange. So this will, as time goes by and we get more people that have build up antibodies, we'll start using those to help others.
I know,
and they'll be closely monitored by the FDA and CDC so that we can see that it is actually helping and it's safe.
One of the questions I know parents have, and this has been something in my own neighborhood as we holler across the street at one another, is if my child, for example, hurts themselves on the trampoline, which I'm fairly certain was put there by an orthopedic surgeon, where do we take them? You're telling me, you said a moment ago, and I want to clarify this, that you're still business as normal. There is a section of the hospital that is COVID specific, but my child with a broken arm or a strep throat or whatever it may be, you're still taking those things. Is that correct?
That is correct, Cam. Absolutely. If you, such as your child falling and having a fractured extremity, you come right to our ER. We will take care of you like as normal. Yeah. Business is normal, taken care of. Fractures, trauma, heart attacks, strokes, babies being delivered, infections, other pneumonias, things like this. We are still open. We're still going to serve the community, and all the hospitals will. We just have to do it in a different light now, where part of our hospital is for coronavirus, and we're isolating the two. We don't want the two to intercross because then you'll cross-contaminate.
Sure. I want to take a different turn on this, Dr. Admire.
Sure.
What is your opinion of the human body in this? Are you looking at the human and saying, this is amazing? Are you looking at it saying, we're weaker than I thought? What is your opinion of our makeup, our DNA code at this point?
I would say we have a very complex immune system. And this isn't the first time that a new infectious type disease has occurred over the millennia that we've been on this earth. Humans are very resilient. We're very resilient, and our bodies will adapt. We've went through plagues in the past, other viruses, other bacteria infections. We will overcome this. The sad thing is that you lose people along the way. And I think the humans, you have to remember, just 120 years ago, the population of the earth was less than 1 billion. Right now, it's close to 8 billion people on this earth. And the difference is 120 years ago, we didn't use jets to fly around, so we're very global now. And we're exposing all different parts of the world, different continents, to different diseases, just like the previous travelers that were on ships that sailed other places and infected the native Indians and such. But we overcome it. Sad thing is that people die from it. But I'm very optimistic that the human race and the population health management will be successful in overcoming coronavirus.
I think everybody my experience in talking is that, yeah, we'll all get through this. And it, just like you said, it'll be sad because we'll lose some people on the way, some of which are very close to us. But the human body is built to survive, just like this virus, I understand, is built to survive, and it figures out a way to do so. What do you think, Dr. Admire, will be our 1 year from now? The lessons learned, how will our day-to-day behavior be changed, and what are the lessons learned? We got about 30 seconds. That's an unfair question.
I would expect seasonal coronavirus to come back every season. But by that time, we'll have built up immunity and we'll have vaccinations. I also see that we're going to avoid handshaking. That's a cultural thing where we shake everyone's hand. We may change that to where we don't shake hands, and we have better personal hygiene, keeping our hands clean at all times. And we keep more awareness of our personal distance that we do with other people. And we'll be more careful when we travel around the world on how we do hygiene and our distancing from people. But I think one of the most important thing is it's just listening to guidelines about social distancing and personal hygiene and avoiding keeping your hands clean, do not touch your face, and things like that. That's what the future holds. It will not be the same after COVID, after we overcome this. Dr.
Bill Admire is the Chief Medical Officer at Mobile Infirmary. He's the Vice President at Mobile Infirmary and the Vice President at North Baldwin Infirmary. Dr. Admire, thank you so much for your time. Folks, we'll come back after this break with Josh and Jay. You're listening to What's Working, brought to you by Regions. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by Regions. Let me give you an update of what's coming on Wednesday. I know that's a long way in our slow-moving world right now, but this is Wednesday, April 15th. I'm going to have Dale Speegens on. He's the CEO of Shipshape Urban Farms. Think of this. 3.5 acres of farmland growing inside one shipping container. They build it inside the shipping container using LED lights and climate control systems and a type of hydroponics. And it'll even tell us what one of these would cost. If you want to go out and buy one, you can learn how much they cost. And I said, is the taste different? I mean, you're not getting real sunlight. He said, it's not the sunlight, man. It's the hydroponics. We feed these plants the exact nutrients they need, and they taste fantastic. That is Wednesday evening, 6 p.m. That's April 15th. That's next Wednesday. On the line right now, Josh Null and Jay Stubbs. Josh is the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. Sorry, Josh. And Jay is the director of the Gulf Coast for First Protective Risk Management firm. Josh, Jay, welcome to What's Working.
Hey, Cam.
So we introduced you at the beginning of the show as two guys that have historically been in face-to-face handshake businesses, and that's the way policies were made, the connections were made, networking, I know, being very important to the two of you, yet you all have very successfully, quickly, and effectively transferred into a virtual environment. Jay, let's start with you. How did you do this? What was I know the need, but what did you do to begin this transformation?
Cam, good question. The first thing we realized is we needed to get online fast. And when you hear the word online, you might be thinking, okay, well, social media. We might be on a LinkedIn platform or a Facebook platform. Whatever connections we can make, we decided we needed to ramp that effort up tremendously. But then, as you stated earlier, gone are the days of meeting face-to-face, at least for now, in the foreseeable future. Our industry, the financial services industry, where typically it's a face-to-face advising or consultative meeting, is forbidden, if you will. Even though we are deemed to be essential services, and people can still come to our office. Cam, if I asked you to come to the office, you'd be like, we'll wait till all of this is over. But
right.
If I said, hey, Cam, can you join me on a virtual meeting where you and I can have a face-to-face conversation regarding your own situation or the opportunities, you might say, okay, I can do that. And so we realized we needed to explore some of the platforms that are out there to go virtual.
Was it a expensive investment to get into this virtual world? Josh, let's hear from you. Was it an expensive investment?
Well, Cam, honestly, if it had been expensive, I don't think I'd have been able to do it to start. Jay and I's relationship really strengthened a couple years ago when I decided to quote unquote leave the mothership of a large brand and strike out on my own, and realize that I had to do my own marketing. So for me to be able to afford to do my own marketing at that time, I had to leverage the technology that was easily available for us, which was online platforms, it was social media, it was websites, it was things that you could fit into a up and coming boutique financial practice and be able to actually have some impact without spending a ton of money.
So you've made this transition at a fairly effective cost, I guess, and I'm curious what your clients think about it. Are they, yes, if you say, I could imagine many of them say, well, let's not have that meeting until this blows over. You're saying, hey, this may not blow over as quickly as it may happen, therefore we've developed this new technology or utilizing this new technology to facilitate our business. Are any of your clients pushing back, Josh, at this new technology? Well,
to give you a very brief backstory, Cam, what Jay and I didn't necessarily realize when we started making this push 2 years ago, that a virus and a worldwide crisis would kind of push the whole world in the direction we were heading anyway. So to answer your question pointedly, a lot of our clients are very used to having communication and visibility with us across many platforms, including our podcast. So for my particular practice, it really was not that you ever want to discount the human-to-human interaction. There is no replacing that. But in the interim, when the necessity came that we needed to conduct our business virtually and electronically, it was an incredibly smooth transition, especially with using technologies like Zoom, using our podcast format, using our social media and our website. It was actually a fairly comfortable transition for our clients, not something I necessarily think they want to do entirely for the rest of their lives, but it was something that we were able to transition, and it became kind of a natural pivot.
Well, I know you both are in the financial services business. You're both financial services professionals, and I imagine people could be thinking, well, this lends well to that profession, but I'm a blank. Jay, do you have any stories of different types of industries that are transferring into this online presence, this video conferencing smoothly that you could share?
I can. In retail, Sam was already tiptoeing toward a high-tech future before COVID-19 sneezes hit the fan. This has turned everything on its head quickly, and we've got to be able to adapt quickly. Now, two things that I experienced personally, and everybody listening to your show today can relate to. I went to Best Buy because I needed a quick item. I ordered this thing online, and I was able to pull up at curbside pickup, and Best Buy said, hey, come grab it, and we'll deliver it to your car window. Yesterday, and the kids here at the house needed Chick-fil-A, so I had to order the Chick-fil-A. I did that through an app, and I pulled into a parking space and told the Chick-fil-A team, hey, I'm number 2 in the parking space. 3 minutes later, my stuff comes out. So we had to make it as easy as everybody else is expecting in their traditional retail world. Just this morning, I hosted 10 different folks on a Zoom webinar, and they simply clicked on a button. As long as they have the Zoom platform on their phone or on their tablet or on their computer, and we used a secure Zoom site. I know there's a little bit of fodder in the news right now with respect to Zoom and the security measures, but we weren't disclosing any social security numbers or highly intelligible financial information. We were just I was being a resource to the people that do business with me. So 10 people clicked the button, and for 20 minutes, we discussed different ways for them to use social media to attract and be relevant in their brand and their marketing efforts. So we had to make it easy, and we have to put the message out there. Just like when we used to hold a face-to-face meeting, I'd call you, Cam, say, hey, do you have 3 o'clock next Tuesday on your calendar open? And you say yes. Then I would book that, and I'd call and confirm or shoot you a text message and confirm. We do the same thing now. It's just instead it's in a video or virtual format. If you can use FaceTime, you can use these other platforms like Zoom.
Yeah, I suspect that it's in all of these companies' best interest to make their technology absolutely as user-friendly as possible. But I want you to think of this for me from a macro to micro, from a concept to action-oriented thing, which means this. Step back and consult and advise the listeners to say, all right, I want you to look at your business this way and figure out how to transfer your business online this way. So give them some things to think about, how to analyze what it is they do and how it may transfer online. Are you able to do that? This is kind of the list that we had talked about.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Josh because he's the consumer-facing. I know these things, but I'm going to defer to Josh because he's the one that's actually dealing with it on the day-to-day.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, Cam, I think that the first thing you have to do as a business owner is evaluate who are my customers, who are my clients, and where are they. So in my space, in the financial services and the financial advisory space, typically when someone is looking for those services, if they're going outside of a network maybe where they're being referred to somebody, they're going to be going online. They're going to be doing research on social media. They're going to be Googling. They're going to be checking out websites. So, Jay and I made a very distinct decision a couple of years ago that we were going to do everything we could to be where people are looking, how they're looking, and when they're looking. So my point would be to other business owners is right now, if you haven't already done it, now is the time to use your imagination. Historically, especially like Jay mentioned, restaurants, there are restaurants doing okay right now. Those are the ones that already had or have quickly pivoted to be able to deliver, or those are the potential ones that had ease of access with drive-up windows. So if you're in a traditional business where maybe you didn't actually have to use your imagination, or you didn't have to kind of go out of your way to get to the client instead came to you, it's going to be a little difficult navigating here in the next few weeks, however long the crisis stays with us. If you're not able, you're going to have to be able to use your imagination. You're going to have to find where your clients are right now because they are still out there. And a lot of times they're still looking for your product. They just simply don't know if your product is available. And if it is, they don't know how to get it. And sometimes simply they don't even know if you're still in business.
So getting out there, announcing it, making yourself available, creative ways to communicate with your customer that you're still available, and without a doubt, the technology venue, the technology stream, particularly social media, is the way to do so. Now, I have been contacted by some of my people that I do business with. They've called. They use this old-fashioned tool called a phone. And they've called to say, Cam, I just want you to know we're still doing it, but you're going to have to get it from us this way, from this point forward. And I actually saw, and this was yesterday, I thought this is brilliant, a friend of mine who is an artist was auctioning off her paintings on Instagram, taking very nice pictures of them and auctioning them off because nobody can come to her studio anymore and look for her materials. Now, Josh, I want to finish up with a question to you. I know you give a lot of presentations, and Jay, I know you do too. But what does it take to be a good presence in an online video environment? Are there tools that you need? You and I study, and I know, Jay, you too have studied the ability to convey confidence and professionalism through what you wear and the way you use your voice, all that old school stuff. What are the new rules for online video? Well,
number one, I'm going to approach it from a structural standpoint, Cam, and a good friend of mine I got a joke for you. A good friend of ours that
30 seconds, Josh.
Carpenter said that the fastest road to depression is doing online conferences in pajamas. So the point of that is it matters how you look. It matters that you've shaved. It matters that you've done your hair. It matters on the lighting. And quite honestly, Cam, one of the easiest way to make your online presentation look a lot better is if you can have your camera up a little bit high so it's coming down at you versus it being low.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Josh, we got to go to break. I thank you two very much. I'd like to check in with you again and see how things are going. Folks, you're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, brought to you by Regions. We'll be right back. We're back. What's Working? This is Cam Marston, brought to you by Regions. I want to highlight, this is that 1:51 p.m. highlight of the show thus far. First, from Jay and Josh, social media, it's time to ramp that up. And goodness knows, I got a report on my phone the other day that tells me how I'm spending my time these days, and the social media numbers were way up, way up. People are going there to see what's going on. If you're in business, you need to make sure your customers on social media know you're out there and know that you're active. I don't know. One of the things that was discussed with Josh and Jay is that face-to-face is over. It certainly is on hiatus for a while. And Dr. Admire said we may never shake hands again, which is obviously a face-to-face communication. But it is on hiatus. And as much as we may not like that, goodness knows my social children are looking for engagement with their peers and are unable to get it. It's over for a while, and we've got to find alternatives. Third, groups work online. Group video interaction. Don't think it only needs to be one-to-one. That group video interaction works. Josh told us it's an inexpensive technology to pick up, something that we could all afford is kind of the way he hinted at. And people are more familiar with this technology than you may think. People are not all afraid of it or fear that it's not going to do the same amount of or give you the same amount of connection as face-to-face. People are more familiar with it than you may think. If you're not getting into it because you're afraid it's too unfamiliar to your clients, the point is, from Josh, you'd be surprised. They probably are. Now, on the line, I've got President and CEO of Feeding the Gulf Coast Food Bank, Dan Emery. Dan, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Dan, when I was looking into your organization, I was shocked by the number of counties that you guys cover. Give us that overview. What is that?
We do 25,000 square miles. We do 8 counties in Mississippi. We do 10 counties in Alabama, and we do 8 counties in Florida. So we cover a lot of territory.
And your mission. Give us an overview of your mission, please.
So our mission is to remedy food insecurity, and every day I'm inspired by my employees because we're still fully operational, and we're doing group feedings, and we are exercising social distancing and food safety, but we're still serving the community. And our kind of a barometer of our need is our website viewership is up 900%. So we appreciate your listeners helping us, and you can go to feedingthegulfcoast.org and you get information on finding food. You can also get information on how can I help.
So I saw something online when AL.com this morning, and I looked for your name in it. They didn't doesn't look like they interviewed you, but it says some food banks are running out of money, others out of food, and some have run out of volunteers. Of those 3, Dan, prioritize them for you.
Well, volunteers are off 70%, so that's clearly a problem. But in terms of food, we still have some, and we're wondering what it's going to look like in 30 days or 60 days. That's the biggest problem. We need all the donations we can get, but we're still fully functional, which, unlike a lot of other people, we're not shaking hands anymore. We're still real friendly guys, but I heard your intro, and we had that very discussion. I don't know if we'll ever shake hands again. I hate to say it, but met the mayor the other day and didn't shake his hand, did the old elbow bump, and that's all very strange to me. Yeah,
it's the new normal, and we're saying that a lot these days, too. It's the new normal. So tell me this, food has historically come to the food banks from where, and what has dropped off the most?
It comes from a number of places. We have food drives. We actually purchase food, and we actually get USDA subsidized food. So, for instance, we got oranges from California, and we got apples from Washington State based on surpluses. We get pork when we're having trade wars with China. So the government does that as a way to balance the cost of things and also have food available for us. And then we deliver it to agencies. 90% of our agencies are churches.
Has the interstate commerce, the slowing down, or in some cases, I understand, the stopping of that impacted the ability for you to get food? Well,
since we're an essential service, we've been able to have our drivers have a note from actually me. It's strange to have a note from yourself to come to work, but we just hand them a note and they give us a salute and we give them a salute. We go on down the road, so it hadn't been a problem.
See, imagine this. There's somebody listening right now, and he or she is in their kitchen, and they say, this man needs our help, and the people that he serves needs our help. And they're opening up their cupboard, and they're looking in. What do you need them to look for?
Well, the best thing for us is any shelf-stable foods you have, canned goods, macaroni and cheese, those kind of things. That's very helpful because our freezer space is very limited. So that freezers and refrigerators is the biggest pinch point. Literally in Florida, they are plowing under vegetables because they can't get them into a package. And what you've seen during this crisis is food service is off 65 to 70%. You don't realize it, but 42% of our food supply goes into food service. So that's why you've seen the big rush on grocery stores, because consumers now can't go to McDonald's and walk in. They can go to the drive-through, but it's created a little bit of sense of panic. Not only are people losing their jobs, but they're wondering, okay, what's it going to look like a month from now?
If I have, let's say, a grocery bag full of food that I've identified that I can spare, what do I do with it?
You can either drop it by our office or you can drop it by one of our member agencies, and 90% of them are churches. And you can find them on our website, feedingthegulfcoast.org also.
So you've got ways to do it, and I assume the delivery method on site is COVID thought through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We do literally a drive-through. When people pick up product here, they call us and say we're here. They open up their trunk, and we put it in the trunk. We literally did a drive-by pantry in Biloxi, Mississippi last weekend, and we serviced 700 cars, and most of the people in the cars had masks on, frankly.
That's awesome. President and CEO of Feeding the Gulf Coast Food Bank, Dan Emery. Dan, thank you so much for your time. Folks, we'll have another show for you on Tuesday. Check us out online. Find us What's Working with Cam Marston, or go to cammarston.com where you'll find this podcast. Looking forward to talking to you on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.